The object of this film is to show you how to obtain maximum proficiency as an air gunner. Natural gifts, like quickness of eye, deftness of hand, are very desirable attributes. But every air gunner can improve his efficiency and increase his accuracy by learning and practicing the drill routine which you will see on the screen. First of all, I will show you the customary procedure of air gunner members of a bomber operational crew. From the experience gained by operational air gunners over a long period, the drill and routine you will see subsequently in close-up scenes has been produced. For the moment, we will follow our operational air gunners and see what they do and the reason for the procedure. The man behind the guns is the air gunner, but the man behind the air gunner is the armourer. So we commence with a visit to the armoury. The armourer's responsibility is to see that the guns and turret are in first-class order, the ammunition tanks loaded with the correct ammunition for the operation. But the experienced air gunner leaves nothing to chance, and the usual practice is to pay a visit to the armoury before checking up the turrets a couple of hours previous to taking off. The experienced air gunner is not even satisfied with the 700. His alone is the final responsibility for the efficiency of his armament. To find out a slight error on the part of somebody else when 100 miles away from base is no satisfaction. The tail gunner is making his way aft, pausing to have a look at the recuperator, the key piece of the hydraulic system which provides power to operate a turret. The position of the air gunner in his turret tends to individual methods, some of which may be good, but a standard practice is just as essential in air gunnery as it is in naval gunnery. As our armament increases and new types are introduced, this standard procedure may vary from time to time. For the purpose of this film, the Frazer-Nash turret as fitted to Wellington aircraft is employed. As soon as he gets in the turret, the gunner checks his ammunition, both tanks of course. He knows the 700 states that all tanks are loaded, but, well, you can't be too certain. It wouldn't be the first time a gunner has found one tank empty. You will note that this gunner leaves his ammunition belt over the duct, which enables him to load up quicker than if he has to use the loading cable and pull it right up from the tank. He puts one round over the retaining pole, and proceeds to cock both his guns. He replaces his tools in the stowage. He then checks his reflector sight. In the nose turret, the same inspection is being carried out. This gunner also checks his ammunition to see that it is correct for the particular operation. It will be noticed that the nose gunner has left his ammunition down in the tanks, so he uses the arming cable to pull it up, threading it through the feed opening and down the duct. Note the absence of hurry or flurry. Loading is a simple operation when carried out slowly and deliberately. This is a good habit of mind, which with practice makes all movements accurate and sure. The arming cable is then attached to the open end of the links, and he makes certain that the hook is pointing the same way as the bullets. The rounds are then drawn up the duct into the feed opening, one round being placed over the retaining pole. The breech cover is closed, and the arming cable returned to its correct stowage. The lids of the ammunition tanks being replaced. While the gunners are in the turret, the ground crew are cleaning the perspex. Many a dead fly on the perspex has been mistaken for an aircraft. Perspex should be kept equally as clean as a good motor driver keeps his windscreen. After inspection and ensuring that fire and safe units are at safe, the air gunners leave their turrets, carefully closing their doors, and return to await their final instructions. The crew of an op bomber, one of the best examples of what is known as teamwork. Each man knows his job thoroughly, and, what is more important, knows that every other member of the crew is an expert at his job. The success of the operation is the success of the crew, but at any moment one member may be called upon for an entirely individual effort. It might be the pilot, the wireless operator, the gunner. An aircrew is a team, yet circumstances so often demand the utmost from the individual. Especially is this true of the air gunner alone in his turret. Again, the tail gunner gives a look at the recuperator. Another good habit to acquire. The gunners of this crew are entering their turrets while the aircraft is on the ground. This rule applies when taking off from an aerodrome subject to enemy attack. When taking off from an aerodrome where enemy attack is unlikely, gunners take their position when the aircraft is airborne on the order from the captain. Now observe how the tail gunner gets in. Feet first, and without touching the elevator bar. This is important, as even a lightweight gunner resting momentarily on the elevator bar when the aircraft is airborne can cause a lot of trouble. Bombers are not made to loop. Once in your turret, plug in your intercom and call up pilot. "I am receiving you, strength 9 over," replies pilot. So tail gunner closes his doors, left first, then right, bringing the bulkhead into closing position. The nose gunner swings into his turret. It looks easy, and is easy when you know the right way and practice it. His first operation is to plug in his intercom and test with the pilot. He then closes his turret doors, first left, then right, making quite sure they are locked by leaning back on them. He then does up his safety harness. Checks up his reflector sight for correct strength. Makes sure that the fire and safe unit is at safe. You'll remember on his original loading he only put one round over the retaining pole, so he cocks each gun twice. While the nose gunner is engaged in these operations, another member of the crew walks forward and closes the bulkhead door. The aircraft engines are running, thus providing power to turrets, which are tested by the gunners for rotation, elevation, and depression. The captain is then informed by both gunners that guns and turrets are okay. Meanwhile, the other members of the crew have been following the usual procedure before takeoff. The aircraft and the crew are now one complete, efficient unit, ready for all eventualities. Everything all set? Okay. Chocks away. And off she goes. Some hours later, we see the successful return of the aircraft and crew, the tail gunner receiving a slight bumping in his turret as the machine taxis across the ground. The ground crew, pleased to see their pigeon back, run forward and signal the aircraft into position and help the crew out. The second pilot walks forward to undo the bulkhead door for the nose gunner. While power from the engines is still available, the tail gunner centralizes his turret and pushes home the lock. He sees that his guns are left on safe. He sees his reflector sight is switched off, raises the breech cover and unloads, taking care not to let the ammunition slip back into the tanks by folding the belts outwards and backwards over the ammunition ducts. This operation is repeated with both guns. All this procedure takes place when the aircraft is airborne, if the base is not subject to attack. Otherwise, unloading etc. is done when the aircraft has landed. He disconnects his intercom, undoes his safety belt, and vacates his turret and you will note that he carefully shuts his doors. The nose gunner, meanwhile, having performed the same operations, comes out of his turret and carefully shuts his doors behind him, collecting his parachute out of the stowage as he goes. You have seen how all these operations have been carried out. They all seem very simple and straightforward. We want you now to see this done in detail. There is a right way and a wrong way. Learn the right way. This will give you an efficiency which will save you seconds. And a few seconds mean a lot when you have only 1/10 of a second on the target. A drill which is instilled in the mind will, in the event of an emergency, become automatic. You just do the right thing without having to think. Here then is the drill. As you see them on the screen, try to remember their sequence. Open turret doors. Fold safety harness upwards and backwards over the ammunition tanks so that you don't sit on the harness when getting in. By means of the handrail and roof of the fuselage, swing into the turret feet first. Plug in intercom. Make sure that it is well home. Close turret doors, left first, then right. Bolt. Lean back and make certain they are locked. Do up safety belt. Test reflector sight, setting it for correct strength. Check ammunition by removing the lids from the tanks, inspecting the base of the rounds to make quite certain that the ammunition in both tanks is joined and that it is being fed from the rear tanks. Replace lids. Remove arming cable and loading toggle, check them and return to stowage. Adjust seat by winding the handles on both sides to suit your height and return handles to their stowed position. Unlock turret and test for rotation, depression and elevation. And check operation of firing gear. Load guns by pulling the rounds up into the feed opening with the arming cable. Detach the arming cable and press down the last link. Close the breech cover and return the arming cable to the proper stowage. Cock guns twice by inserting the toggle over the cocking stud and pulling back. Return the loading toggle to its proper stowage. Move the fire and safe unit to fire. Fire test burst. If airborne, over the sea. If on the ground and station orders permit, into the ground. Ensure that hand rotation is disengaged. Report guns OK to Captain. This is the drill for vacating the turret. Whilst power is still available, slowly rotate the turret to the central position and engage locking plunger in the recess of the cam. Put fire and safe unit to safe. Switch off reflector sight. Unload guns by raising breech cover and pulling back cocking stud by means of loading toggle. Raise transporter and remove round from face of breech block. Depress rear sear release, thereby allowing breech block to fly forward. Whilst breech cover is raised, release end of belt from the retaining pawl. Press down transporter. Finally close breech cover. Disconnect intercom. Hold socket with left hand. Pull out jack with right, placing same in pocket. Undo safety belt. Open turret doors and, by gripping handrail in roof of fuselage, swing out of the turret and close and lock doors. Now let us see the routine carried out in actual practice. The ordeal of a first flight in a gun turret will be made much easier if you remember your gun turret drill. The time will come when you will make your first operational flight. In this sequence, you will observe the major points of interest and mistakes you are likely to make unless you have thoroughly learned your turret drill. There is a right and wrong way of doing everything. Learn the right way. Many drill sequences have been tried, and the one you have just seen has been proved to be the most efficient and practical. You can drill yourself by repeating over and over again the drill you have just seen. In this sequence, we persuaded a qualified air gunner to play the part of a trainee in order to demonstrate the many mistakes that can be made if the drill routine is forgotten. The old method for the rear gunner was to stow his parachute in the fuselage. Now you take it into the turret with you. The doors are shut as he arrives at his turret, as they should be. Obviously, he has learned how to swing into a rear turret without taking a rest on the elevator bar. And he is closing his doors in the correct sequence. The nose gunner stows his parachute in the proper stowage. Let us hope for the same efficiency as we had from the tail gunner, but apparently not. First of all, he has to open his doors. No, unlock them first. It's much easier. Now swing in. Not head first, idiot. Feet first. We don't mind you hurting yourself, but mind our turrets. Grip the handrail in the roof of the fuselage and swing in feet first. And he does it, trailing his intercom lead behind him. It's much better to keep it in your pocket until you plug in. Unless you are careful, you will find yourself getting flustered like this gunner. We know it's his first trip, but take it easy. Now watch this man. It is evident that he has not learned his drill thoroughly, but you can profit by his mistakes. He closed the doors incorrectly, but fortunately remember to test them, thereby finding out his mistake in time. If he had not, this would have happened in flight, with very unpleasant consequences. Apart from icy cold, the damage might result in loss of life, and certainly the loss of a very good door. Some of the drill is remembered. The safety belt is done up. Reflector sight is checked and set to the correct strength for daylight conditions. Removing lids from tanks, he checks ammunition for supply and operation. And you observe he makes certain of both tanks. Next, he checks tools and returns them to stowage, and satisfies himself that the hand rotation is disengaged. He remembers turret rotation test, but has forgotten to unlock. Forcibly reminded, he unlocks and tests for rotation, elevation, and depression. In the scramble and confusion of getting into the turret, he has knocked his microphone switch to the on position, thereby causing considerable annoyance to other members of the aircrew and reducing the strength of the reception throughout the whole aircraft. He now proceeds to load his guns. Watch how, in his endeavour to do the job quickly, his movements are clumsy and jerky, and he has considerable difficulty in threading the arming cable down the duct. Removing the lid of the ammunition tank, he cannot remember automatically which way round the arming cable is to be positioned. He gets it right, the hook pointing the same way as the bullets, and proceeds to draw the belt up into the feedway. He has now got one round over the retaining pole. And replaces the arming cable in the correct stowage. He closes the breech cover and cocks the gun once. Good. He cocks the gun again. Good. He operates the trigger. Nothing happens. Of course, the gun won't fire with the fire and safe unit at safe. He cocks the gun again. Good. Puts the fire and safe unit onto fire. That's right. But you will notice that the breech cover has jumped open, therefore no feed will take place. So let's do it again, and we will do it correctly this time. Draw the rounds into the feedway, over the retaining pole. Close the breech cover. Replace the arming cable. Cock the guns once. Operate the trigger. Cock the guns again. Put the fire and safe unit onto fire, and the guns will now be ready for action. Now this is a mistake that will very successfully jam the feed of the gun. Always put your tools in the correct stowage. At last, he reports guns OK. And our air gunner is ready for the air, ready for anything that comes his way, but we hope it won't come this trip. Perhaps his score on the drogue will be better than his turret drill. We won't inquire too closely how the tail gunner got on, but everything appears to be okay. However, we all have to learn, and making mistakes is part of the process. But as we in the Air Force know, it is better and safer to make your mistakes on the ground. That is why I want to impress you with the importance of thoroughly learning your turret drill on the ground, so that, when in the air, you will be better qualified to learn other branches of the air gunner's job. The training crew return from their flight. The nose gunner centralizes and locks his turret while there is still power available. He raises his breech covers and loads his guns. Switches off his reflector sight. So far all is well. He has remembered his end-of-flight drill. But this is not the way to disconnect your intercom. Now let's do it again properly. Notice that he holds the socket in the one hand and pulls out the jack with the other. Neither is this the way to open turret doors, letting them swing violently back, probably causing serious damage. Another fault frequently found is the habit of treading heavily on the locking flange. If this practice is repeated a number of times, the locking flange becomes bent and the bolt will not engage in its socket. The tail gunner now leaves his turret, using the proper handles in the roof of the fuselage. And is careful to close and lock his turret doors and also the bulkhead door. Meanwhile, the nose gunner has closed and locked his turret doors, collected his parachute from the stowage, the end of his first training flight. Enough for one day. What you have seen is no exaggeration and shows you how vitally important it is that you should learn and thoroughly master your turret drill. So before we end this part of the film, we will go through the drill sequence once more. Visualize it and remember it in this order. 1. Open turret doors. 2. Fold back safety harness. 3. Grasp handrail and swing into turret. 4. Plug in intercom. 5. Close turret doors. Left, right, bolt. 6. Lean back. Make certain they are locked. 7. Do up safety belt. 8. Test reflector sight. 9. Check ammunition for type and stowage. 10. Remove tools, check, and return to stowage. Adjust seat, return handles to stowage. 12. Unlock turret. 13. Test rotation, depression, elevation, and firing gear. 14. Load guns using arming cable. Detach. Press down transporter. Close breech cover and return arming cable to stowage. 15. Cock guns once. Release rear sear. Recock. Return loading toggle to stowage. Move fire and safe unit to fire. 16. Fire test burst. 17. Ensure hand rotation is disengaged. 18. Report guns OK to captain. This is the end of flight drill. 1. Slowly rotate turret to central position and engage locking plunger. 2. Put fire and safe unit to safe. 3. Switch off reflector sight. 4. Unload and clear guns. Five, disconnect intercom. 6, undo safety belt. 7, open turret doors. 8, grasp handrail and swing out of turret. 9, close and lock doors.